my favorite foods. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Okay. So, great. So, as Olivia said, my name is Andrea, but you might not know my last name. Fondulist.
That's great.
I was just going to say that. If you hear a lot of the vowels in there, it is because I'm Greek. Come on. Thank you. The next one better be a little more coordinated, guys. Come on. Okay, but I am not the best Greek person. I don't really like olives. I don't like lamb.
What?
I know. I don't really drink a lot. Sorry. And I only know like 3 words in Greek. I know Takanis, which I think means how are you? I know Christos Anesti, which means happy Easter and can only be used once a year. And I know the word demos, which means people. And so when you combine the word demos with the word krasi, which I learned means rule, you smush them together and you get my favorite word ever, democracy.
People rule.
People rule, sometimes. Okay, so having a lineage to the people who invented rule of the people, I believe loving democracy is in my blood. It's in my DNA, and it runs in my veins. And to be honest, a very controversial take of mine is that I love American democracy. Sorry! And look, I know the founding fathers were total dicks. Their first iteration of democracy excluded so many people. However, I do believe in the revolutionary thought of a voice in our government. One voice, one vote, we the people. So you have probably heard that democracy is kind of fucked right now, here and around the world. But what you might not know is democracy in New York City has been chronically fucked for almost over a century. And this is where our story begins. Thank you. Gotta just make sure you guys are with me. Okay, and just really quick disclaimer, this presentation is not a critique about political parties in any way, shape, or form, or current election workers. Just so you all know, this is just a historical reference to a system that has been chronically a disaster. Little foreshadowing. Okay, so the Board of Elections has been a thorn in New Yorkers and democracy lovers' side since it was created in 1901. It has been cited as a century-old system of local election administration that is one of the last vestiges of pure patronage in government, a relic from the era of powerful political clubhouses and Tammany Hall. Boo! But how much of a relic is it really? Because the caricature of corruption that symbolizes Tammany Hall has become so alluring it's almost like folklore. But we forget how closely their influence still lingers in New York City. So, a very quick summarized refresher of who Tammany Hall was. This was a political organization that became the most infamous corrupt political organization in United States history. For example, the main guy, Boss Tweed, is said to have stolen, in today's money, $3.5 billion from the city of New York. Taxpayers, yeah. However, we hold 2 things in our mind at the same time. That Tammany, for a long time, was very instrumental in helping immigrants acclimate after they came through Ellis Island. They helped them get jobs, they helped them get homes, they got their kids into school, and they helped them become United States citizens. But the problem started to arise when these favors were used for quid pro quos, especially around elections. And so they would force people to vote for Tammany politicians by literally dragging them to the polls, watching them cast a ballot. They would intimidate voters, and they would make people vote under several different names. So while this election tampering was going on, you might be like, where was the police? Well, 2 things about that. The police were deep in Tammany Hall's pockets. Wouldn't you know it? No, we're shocked. But also, which actually you might not know, is that the elections in New York City at this time were under the jurisdiction of the police department. We're sensing no conflicts of interest here. Okay. So right now, we're all going to be time traveling to the 1890s. And I was trying to remember if this was like Reconstruction era or the Gilded Era. It is the Gilded Era, but I also learned that the 1890s were called the Gay 90s. But unfortunately, Wikipedia has to point out that it was just because it was like cheerful and optimistic, and not as I was hoped that everybody was just like super gay and hooking up with each other.
Yeah.
True. Some people were super gay and hooking up with each other. Okay, so, all right, we are in 1892, New York. Democrat Governor David Hill is in power, and he really, really, really wants a majority in the New York State Senate. And well, the election didn't really go as he would hope. He was 3 seats short. And since he was a Democrat, of course, he stood by the election results and just accepted the wishes of the voters and moved on with his life. Wait a minute. Sorry, I think I read this wrong. No, because he stole the damn Senate. Sure did. Okay, so how was the will of the people expressed at the polls be subverted by the machinations of politicians? The New York Times asks us this. So through different ballot technicalities and lawsuits using Tammany Hall's influence, he was able to overturn the victories of these 3 Republican seats, bestowing Democrats with control of the state Senate. So we're going to quickly get into the seats and what happened. All right, first up, District 27. Republican Franklin Sherwood won the election, but then the Court of Appeals, who, guess what, was all filled with Tammany friends, they decided that he was ineligible for office because he did not live in the district at the time. It was too close to the election for that, which, side note, they probably would have figured this out when they were putting him on the ballot in the first place, but whatever, they take the seat and bestow it to Democrat Charles Walker Sherwood. Boom, roasted, he's out. Next up, District 25. Republican Rufus Peck won the election, but apparently 1,200 votes were labeled incorrectly by the district. So we had 2 piles of ballots. They switched up the names of which county they were in. They ruled these ballots as worthless and just threw them out. So Peck, boom, roasted, he's out. Democrat John Nichols gets sworn in. Okay, finally, District 15, Republican Gilbert Dean. The New York Times said about this stolen seat that every person who has learned anything of the facts must regard the flagrant violation of election laws on the part of Governor Hill with indignation. So what happened? Well, Gilbert, he fucking died. He died 2 weeks after the election. But there are supposed to be all of these machinations like special elections, just as we're seeing with our favorite disgraced yet somehow iconic former Congressman George Santos. So, boo, but kind of yay because it's funny, but no, he's not in office anymore. But so during his funeral, the election workers were literally stealing his seat. And they essentially just changed the number of votes he had. So in the words of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and Hamilton, they were just like, you don't have the votes, ahaha. And then they snatched the seat away, gave it to Democrat Edward Osborne. So boom, roasted, Gilbert, he did. Democrats now had the majority. So all of this actually happened when Governor Hill was a lame duck. He had just been elected to the United States Senate. So he's up there hanging out with Chuck Schumer, but he knows...
The Chuck Schumer of the 1890s.
Right, or just that level of power, just for context. So, but so former Governor Hill and Tammany Hall knew that they needed to put somebody in this position that would abide by what they wanted. So they all agreed that Roswell Flower would be the right guy for the job. Democrats had the majority, they got their new governor, and they pretty much immediately went to establish their control over elections. So, in drops Tammany Inspector Bill. This is what the public called this piece of legislation because the real name was the Consolidated Election Law Bill of 1892. But that is way less sexy than the vibe that we're going for right now, so we're going to stick with the Tammany Inspector Bill. Especially since this is the gay 90s. I mean, come on. All right.
Just a tip.
So this bill would change the number of election inspectors from 4 to 3. 2 would be affiliated with the majority party in the state Senate, and 1 would be with the minority, which coincidentally, the majority would be the Democrats. Oh my God, shocking. Okay, and these inspectors, keep in mind, they controlled everything about election. Who's on the ballot, accepting voter registration, counting votes, dispersing poll sites, everything. People were pissed. Republicans, other Democrats, the public, there was protest, and even Governor Flower was on the fence if he should sign this bill, to the point that Governor Hill, former Governor Hill, showed up at his house in the middle of the night and told him to use his gubernatorial courage to abide by Tammany Hall. Yeah, I know, it's like super corny. So, 2 years later, 1894, the Republicans are actually somehow able to take back the state Senate. I have no idea how they did this. Maybe that's another odd Salon talk. It's quite impressive seeing Tammany had control of the entire election process because of this. So, Republicans have the state Senate, and now they get more election inspectors. So obviously the Democrats were like, you know what? Fair is fair. We had our turn. You go for it. That's totally incorrect. Again. So there was a compromise with the Democratic governor and the Republican-controlled state Senate, and they wrote into law, bipartisan, even half Democrat, half Republican election inspector structure for our elections.
Better?
Well, hold that thought. 129 years later, we still have this law. We have not changed this. It's not under the police department anymore, but we still have bipartisanship. And I do hear you say, kumbaya. We love bipartisanship. We need it right now. Well, hold on. This is kind of a map of time. So this is a timeline I created for my thesis, which was about this. And these are just a few examples of times that the Board of Elections has disenfranchised people in New York City in the past century. And remember that disenfranchisement looks different in different contexts. It could be long lines. It could be machines breaking. It could be incorrectly counting votes, throwing out mail-in ballots for technicalities, voter registration purges, and not having enough poll sites. The options are endless how to disenfranchise people. But so the main critique here is, how can we have a board that can get anything done if they have completely diametrically opposed values, like who can vote, how to vote, and if election was stolen or not, which can be used in 2 contexts here. So they chronically gridlock, and this is part of why we are stuck in the past in comparison to a lot of other places. All of this creates confusion and distrust in our elections, and this defies our right as American citizens to participate in our democracy. I will, believe me. We're just getting started on my rant. But so I know things seem really bad right now. But none of this speech and talk is supposed to create apathy, because I'm sure people back then felt really hopeless that their elections would never change. Tammany had a monopoly on all of this, on everything election related. But things have gotten better since then, and because of them. We have protections now that were inspired from all of that election tampering. We keep working, we keep expanding our electorate, and we keep updating our election systems. You know, we are slow to evolve here in New York City, but we have made changes. So we can't give up. And I'm to quote Amanda Gorman, the poet that we met during Joe Biden's inauguration. She reminds us that we are not a nation that is broken, but simply unfinished. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose. I know, my fave, one of my faves. And so yesterday, I had just the most complete honor to register brand new United States citizens to vote. It was like one of the greatest things I've ever done. And I was just so aware that people spend tireless years to get this right, to be a citizen, to join our democracy, and have this awesome responsibility. And this is exactly why Tammany Hall was able to use that to their advantage. And, you know, get what they wanted. So the call to action here is vote. See, QR code, if you're not registered, please do it now. Yeah. I have physical voter registration papers if you want one too. But we have to improve turnout in this city. In 2021, we broke records with turnout. And guys, it was 25%. That is not good. But don't take for granted this incredible privilege that we have here. And this is what is going to fix the mess, because we vote. We vote for people who believe in representative democracy. We vote for people who believe in expanding the electorate and believe in reforming our elections to be more inclusive. And that's exactly what James Madison thought would happen when he wrote the Federalist Papers. He was like, if they don't like somebody, they just vote them out. It's not a big deal. We have some problems with what James Madison thought. But it is the most important thing we can do as American citizens. We have to keep expanding the vote and passing the baton. Because as LBJ said when we passed the Voting Rights Act, that this right to vote is the most basic right without which all others are meaningless. So, my toast tonight is very simple, and you've heard it before. But let's raise a glass to a government for the people, by the people, of the people. Yeah. Cheers.